Have you ever noticed that the moment you stop caring so much, they suddenly start caring more? It's almost like magic, but it's not. It's detachment. And no, I'm not talking about playing games, ghosting, or pretending you're too good for someone. I'm talking about something deeper. Real detachment is magnetic because it signals something rare: emotional self-control. Men aren't drawn to women who beg for attention. They're drawn to women who don't need it to feel complete. A woman who can walk away, not because she doesn't feel, but because she refuses to abandon herself, is powerful beyond words. That kind of energy changes the dynamic instantly. She doesn't chase. She doesn't over-explain. She doesn't fear losing what isn't meant for her. And that's the kind of woman men can't forget. This isn't about turning cold. It's about becoming clear. It's about detaching your worth from someone else's actions. It's about realizing that your peace is priceless and you no longer offer it up just to keep someone interested. So if you've ever wondered why chasing love only pushes it away, or why he seemed more into you after you stopped trying, this video is your answer. We're going to uncover the real psychology behind why detachment isn't just attractive, it's irresistible. Because when a woman learns to detach with love, grace, and confidence, she becomes unforgettable. Not because she tries to be, but because she doesn't need to. Every interaction you have, especially romantic, once carries a form of energy. Not just physical attraction or chemistry, but emotional energy. It's invisible, but powerful. And whether you realize it or not, people can feel it. They can sense your attachment, your desperation, your fear of losing them even if you never say a word. That's where so many women unintentionally give their power away. Because while you may be speaking calmly or smiling on the outside, your emotional energy could be screaming, "Please don't leave me." That kind of energy is heavy, and here's the thing, men, especially masculine men, are sensitive to that weight. Not because they're cold or shallow, but because emotional imbalance disrupts attraction. When your emotional energy is anxious, needy, or overly invested too early, it throws everything off. The dynamic shifts from mutual curiosity to emotional pressure. And no one man or woman thrives under emotional pressure. This is why detachment is so powerful. Because when you emotionally detach, you're not turning your heart off. You're turning your power back on. You're regulating your internal state instead of letting someone else's behavior dictate how you feel. And when your energy says, "I care, but I don't need you to validate me," that's magnetic. That creates space for real connection. That tells him, consciously or subconsciously, that you're not here to be chosen, you're already whole, and he has to rise to meet you. Emotional detachment doesn't mean apathy. It means you're no longer outsourcing your self-worth. You're no longer riding the emotional roller coaster of their attention or affection. You've found a grounded center within yourself, and that's where your power comes from. This emotional shift doesn't go unnoticed. Even if you say nothing, your energy begins to change. You're less reactive. You don't chase. You don't need constant reassurance. You stop giving 100% to someone giving you 50. And suddenly they feel it. They feel the absence of your emotional dependency. And it forces them to make a choice. Either step up and meet you in that grounded energy or fade away. Either way, you win, because emotional energy, when mastered, makes you the chooser. You become emotionally abundant instead of emotionally starved. You stop fighting for breadcrumbs because you know you're the whole damn bakery. And that kind of woman, she's not just attractive, she's unforgettable. So if you've been wondering why men pull away when you're emotionally available, or why they suddenly come back when you've stopped trying, it's not a coincidence. It's the shift in your emotional energy. And the moment you learn to protect and direct that energy, everything changes. Because the truth is, the woman who controls her emotions doesn't need to control the relationship. Her energy does it for her. There's something about a woman who knows how to let go that makes her unforgettable. Not because she plays hard to get, not because she's manipulative, but because she exudes emotional control and inner peace. A detached woman is not emotionless, she feels deeply. But she knows how to stay rooted in her own worth. That's the difference. And that's exactly what makes her irresistible. When a woman is emotionally detached, she doesn't revolve around another person. She doesn't obsess over text replies, overanalyze silence, or twist herself to keep someone interested. She understands that love is not about control, it's about freedom. And that's where her power lives. She gives a man space to miss her, room to pursue her, and freedom to choose her not because she's waiting to be picked, but because she's already chosen herself. This kind of woman is rare in a world that often teaches women to give endlessly, to prove their worth, to chase validation disguised as love. The detached woman breaks that pattern. She walks away when she's not valued. She doesn't try to force chemistry or convince someone to see her value. And because she isn't chasing, she becomes the one who's chased. Men are wired to be drawn toward a challenge, but not in the way most people think. It's not about playing games, it's about presenting your full self without attachment to the outcome. A detached woman can be fully present, warm, and even vulnerable, but she's not emotionally dependent on what someone else does with that. She can love without losing herself. That's magnetic. She's the kind of woman who doesn't flinch when someone pulls away. Not because she doesn't care, but because her emotional center is stable. She knows someone is meant to stay, they will. She knows that love should feel like flow, not force. And that level of emotional intelligence, it's captivating. She doesn't beg. She doesn't over-explain. She doesn't get lost in proving herself. Instead, she stands in her quiet confidence. She lets her presence speak for itself. And here's the truth. When a man feels that you are capable of walking away, but still choose to engage with him, it awakens something inside him. It challenges him to rise, to value, to earn. Because deep down, everyone wants to feel they're in the presence of someone who doesn't need them, but chooses them. Detached women don't confuse connection with compatibility. They can feel a spark and still walk away if the treatment doesn't match the energy. They don't settle for potential. They value peace over passion when the passion comes with chaos. That kind of emotional discipline doesn't go unnoticed. It leaves an impression that lingers long after the moment has passed. And what truly makes her irresistible is that she's not performing. Her detachment isn't a tactic, it's a truth. She's done the work. She's been through the emotional wars. And she's chosen herself again and again. That's what gives her that quiet glow, that unshakable grace, that presence that makes people wonder, what does she have that others don't? The answer is simple. She has herself completely. And that, more than beauty, more than charm, more than words, is what makes her unforgettable. So many women are giving their best energy to men who are slowly slipping away, and they don't understand why. They think if they love harder, give more, stay patient, or become exactly what he wants, he'll finally stay. But what they don't realize is that those very actions often trigger the opposite effect. Men don't pull away because a woman isn't enough. They pull away because the energy shifts from attraction to pressure, from curiosity to control. And most of the time it starts with a few very common mistakes. One of the biggest is over-investing emotionally before there's any real commitment. Is giving your heart, your time, your energy to someone who hasn't earned access to you. You start to care too quickly. You build a future in your mind based on potential, not reality. And the problem is that emotional overexposure can feel overwhelming to a man who hasn't decided if he's all in. He senses that you're already there, and instead of pulling him closer, it creates distance. Attraction thrives on pace. When you move faster emotionally than he does, he feels eye-tanned often, he steps back. Another mistake? Losing your sense of self. You cancel your plans, rearrange your schedule, or silence your needs just to keep the peace. You slowly become a version of yourself that's centered around him, and you think you're being loving, supportive, or understanding. But from the outside, it looks like you've abandoned your own life. Men are drawn to women who are rooted in something beyond the relationship, passions, purpose, friendships, peace. When all your emotional weight shifts onto the connection, it becomes unbalanced. That's when interest starts to fade. Then there's over-communication in the form of over-explaining your feelings. Thinking that if you just say it right, he'll understand and step up. But in reality, repeating yourself over and over about what you want doesn't make him more receptive. It makes you feel like a parent and him like a child. Attraction doesn't grow in a space where one person is constantly teaching the other how to love them. It grows when both people show up, emotionally aware, and take mutual responsibility for the dynamic. Another subtle mistake is needing constant reassurance. Asking where the relationship is going, wondering how he feels, overanalyzing his tone or text replies. That anxious energy isn't bad, it's just misplaced. It tells him, my peace depends on how you treat me. And that's a lot of pressure. What's more powerful is when you notice a shift in his energy and instead of reacting in panic, you respond with grounded curiosity or even silence. That silence sends a message louder than any words. I'm not here to chase confusion. Lastly, the mistake that often goes unnoticed is settling for bare minimum. Holding on to crumbs, hoping they turn into a feast. Accepting mixed signals, inconsistent effort, emotional unavailability because you're scared of starting over or believe it's the best you can get. But every time you stay in something that drains you, you're teaching him how little he has to give to keep you. None of this is about blaming women. It's about awareness. When you understand the emotional dynamics at play, you regain your power. You stop trying to convince someone to choose you and start choosing yourself instead. That shift alone changes everything. Because the moment you stop making these mistakes, the right man won't be pushed away. He'll be drawn in. One of the most common misconceptions in modern dating is confusing detachment with game playing. On the surface, they might look similar, pulling back, not over-investing, not reacting emotionally, but the intention behind each is completely different. And that intention is everything. Game playing is rooted in fear, insecurity, and control. Detachment, on the other hand, comes from emotional strength, clarity, and self-worth. And if you don't know the difference, you could end up mimicking behavior that actually sabotages your relationships. Game playing is about trying to get a reaction. It's about withholding communication just to make someone miss you, pretending to be busy when you're not, acting like you don't care when deep down you're spiraling. It's manipulative, it's performative, and it usually backfires. Why? Because you're not being authentic. You're operating from a place of fear. Fear of being too much, too available, too vulnerable. So instead of showing up in your truth, you create a version of yourself that's designed to hook someone's attention. But attraction built on manipulation is shallow. It doesn't last. Eventually, the real you will come forward, and if the connection wasn't built on honesty, it will fall apart. Detachment is different. It's not pretending you don't care. It's genuinely being okay whether someone chooses you or not. It's not silence as punishment. It's silence as protection. It's not coldness, it's boundaries. A detached woman isn't trying to control someone's perception of her. She's simply not willing to abandon her peace for anyone. That kind of emotional clarity is powerful. It's not reactive. It's responsive. It comes from doing the inner work and knowing your worth so deeply that you don't feel the need to chase or prove anything. Here's the truth. People can feel the difference. A man can tell when you're pulling back to punish him versus pulling back to protect your energy. One feels like manipulation. The other feels like maturity. And while manipulation might get you temporary attention, maturity earns you long-term respect. It invites a deeper kind of connection on, where both people feel safe to be honest, not perform. When you're detached, you don't need constant validation because you're not hinging your value on someone else's actions. You're able to give without fear of losing. You can walk away without needing to make a scene. You don't chase, not because you're playing hard to get, but because you know what's meant for you won't require chasing. Game playing is rooted in the belief that love has to be earned by withholding yourself. Detachment is the opposite. It says, I'm whole with or without you. It creates space. It gives others the opportunity to come towards you of their own free will. That space is where real desire grows, not from pressure or performance, but from genuine interest and mutual respect. So ask yourself, am I being distant to protect my peace, or am I being distant to provoke a reaction? The answer to that question will tell you everything about where your power really is. Because at the end of the day, the most irresistible thing you can be isn't emotionally unavailable, it's emotionally grounded. That's not a game, that's a glow. And the right man, he won't be confused by it. He'll be drawn to it. Emotional detachment doesn't mean shutting off your heart or pretending you don't care. It means learning how to protect your peace without turning to bitterness or indifference. It's the art of letting go with love. And that's something most people don't know how to do, especially when emotions run deep. But the truth is, detaching without going cold is not only possible, it's one of the most powerful emotional skills you can ever learn. The first step is understanding that detachment begins internally, not externally. It's not about cutting someone off or deleting their number out of spite. It's about no longer giving them the power to control your emotions. You stop checking your phone every few minutes. You stop replaying conversations in your head. You stop building your mood around their presence or absence. You begin to turn the energy you once gave to them back towards yourself. And that shift is subtle but life-changing. You don't have to announce your detachment. You don't need to post vague quotes or act distant to prove a point. In fact, the strongest form of detachment is silent. It's when you stop trying to be understood by someone who doesn't listen. It's when you stop arguing for your worth. It's when you let their lack of effort speak for itself. And instead of filling the space with over-explaining, you fill it with self-reflection, healing, and growth. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you stop sacrificing your well-being for the sake of connection. You can still love someone and create space. You can still feel deeply and choose distance. You can want the best for someone and still decide they're not what's best for you. That's not cold, that's clarity. And clarity will always feel like peace, even when it hurts. A key part of emotional detachment is accepting what you cannot control. You can't control how someone feels about you. You can't control how they show up or don't. You can't control whether they choose you, stay, leave, or change. What you can control is how you respond to that reality. Do you hold on tighter? Or do you release the fantasy of what you wish they were and meet them as they are? When you emotionally detach, you don't suppress your emotions, you regulate them. You feel the sadness, but you don't let it drown you. You feel the anger, but you don't let it turn into revenge. You feel the disappointment, but you don't beg for closure. You learn to sit with your feelings without reacting from them. That's real emotional maturity, and it's incredibly attractive. The truth is, emotional detachment isn't about being cold. It's about being centered. You're no longer seeking external validation. You're not acting out of desperation. You're no longer waiting for someone else to make you feel whole. Instead, you find that wholeness within. And from that place, you can love with freedom, not fear. You can give without attachment. You can walk away without collapsing. So if you're struggling with how to detach without shutting down completely, start with this. Return to yourself. Take your energy back. Pour into your own healing, your own joy, your own purpose. Because the moment you stop trying to manage someone else's actions, you reclaim your own power. And that's what real detachment looks like, not cold, not cruel, but calm, clear, and quietly confident. When you begin to emotionally detach and take your power back, something incredible starts to happen, but it often shows up in quiet, subtle ways. It's not always a dramatic shift. It's not always someone coming back with grand gestures or immediate clarity. Sometimes the first signs that it's working aren't about what others are doing, but what you're no longer doing. And that's where real transformation begins. One of the first signs that detachment is working is that your emotional triggers start to dissolve. Where you used to feel anxious waiting for a reply, now you feel peaceful, even indifferent. That silence that used to sting, it no longer owns you. You no longer check your phone obsessively or reread conversations hoping to decode hidden meaning. The constant mental loop of, what did I do wrong? Becomes a whisper, then fades altogether. Your mind feels lighter. Your body is calmer. You start to feel like yourself again. Another real-life sign is that you stop negotiating your worth. You no longer try to convince someone to stay, explain why you deserve love, or shrink yourself to be more likable. Instead, you create space for someone to rise to meet you, or for something better to take its place. And when someone gives you less than you deserve, it's not a heartbreak anymore, it's a redirection. You recognize that disrespect, confusion, and mixed signals are not invitations to try harder. They're signs to try elsewhere. You'll also notice that your energy shifts back to you. The things you use to neglect your passions, your friendships, your routines begin to matter again. You no longer wake up wondering what they're doing or go to sleep replaying every moment. You're more present in your own life. You start eating better, sleeping deeper, laughing more. And that glow is not from a facial, it's from emotional freedom. People will notice, even if they don't know what changed. And yes, sometimes one of the signs it's working is that the person who once pulled away starts to come back. Maybe they message you out of nowhere. Maybe they suddenly want to talk, reconnect, or check in. But here's what's different. You're not shaken anymore. You're not flattered by breadcrumbs. You're not tempted to jump back into a situation that once left you starving for validation. You see things clearly now. Their return doesn't knock you off. Balance, it confirms that your shift in energy is real. What's even more powerful is that you start attracting people who treat you differently, with more respect, presence, and clarity. Your boundaries, once seen as too much, are now drawing in people who appreciate your strength. That's no accident. When you stop pouring into the wrong cups, the right ones start to appear. You begin to experience relationships that don't require guessing, fixing, or proving. And here's something subtle but major. Your silence becomes more powerful than your words ever were. You don't chase closure. You don't argue to be understood. You don't fight for the last word. You simply move on, and the echo of your absence becomes louder than anything you could have said. That's when you know detachment is working. You're no longer trying to win someone back. You've already won. You've won yourself back. So if you're wondering whether your decision to emotionally detach is making a difference, take a closer look at your peace, your confidence, your clarity. If those are growing, you're on the right path. Because the real reward isn't getting them to come back. It's realizing you never needed them to begin with. If there's one truth to hold on to as you grow, heal, and step deeper into your feminine power, it's this. You don't have to chase, beg, prove, or perform for love that's real. Your power doesn't lie in how much you give to someone else, it lies in how deeply you stay connected to yourself. And staying in your power isn't about always being strong or never feeling emotional. It's about honoring your feelings without letting them control your worth. It's about knowing that even in your most vulnerable moments, you are still whole. One of the most important pieces of advice I can give you is to stop outsourcing your value. You don't need someone else to validate your beauty, your energy, your presence. When you truly know your worth, you become magnetic without effort. You speak less, but say more. You don't need to announce your standards, they're felt. You don't need to convince anyone to choose you, because you've already chosen you. And when that energy becomes your baseline, people treat you differently. They rise to meet you, or they fall away. And either way, you win. Staying in your power also means becoming emotionally self-regulating. You stop reacting to every shift in someone's behavior. You stop spiraling over unanswered messages or lukewarm attention. Instead, you get curious about what it's showing you. Is it aligned with what you want? Is this energy that nourishes you or drains you? You stop hoping that someone will finally realize your value and start asking yourself why you keep giving it to people who don't see it in the first place. Another key, let peace be your standard. Not just love, not chemistry, not attraction, peace. Ask yourself, do I feel safe here? Do I feel seen? Can I be soft? Or do I always have to be on edge? Staying in your power means walking away from anything that costs your inner peace, even if your heart wants to stay, especially then, because your emotions can be loud, but your soul always knows the truth. And real power comes from listening to it. Also, remember this, staying in your power isn't about ego, it's about alignment. It's not about proving that you're better, stronger, or untouchable. It's about knowing that your energy is sacred and you're no longer available for anything that disturbs your spirit. You can wish someone well and still choose distance. You can be kind and still walk away. You can love someone and still decide that the way they show up isn't enough for the woman you've become. That's not cruelty. That's evolution. And finally, stay close to your inner truth. Journal. Reflect. Take quiet moments with yourself to ask the hard questions. What do I really want? What patterns am I repeating? Where am I abandoning myself? This work isn't always glamorous, but it's real. It's the kind of work that doesn't just shift your relationships, it shifts your life. Because when a woman rises into her power, everything around her has to either rise with her or fall away. So here's your reminder. You are not too much. You are not too emotional. You are not hard to love. You're just done settling for less than what you know in your heart is meant for you. And that shift, the one where you return to yourself, is the most powerful move you will ever make. Don't let anyone make you forget who you are. Stay grounded, stay open, and stay powerful.